By the light of the stars, I was hunting again for a mean old troll in a third-level den. I'd been lucky so far, this was old school rules. I should have been cautious, should have used my tools. The path was leafy and the way was dim. The DM cracked a smile, but I ignored him. And then I fell into a spike pit.
Hello, I'm Croaky Old Spikepit, and you are listening to episode 121. Hey ho, let's go, it's more punk rock podcasting. If you can hear the sound of drums in the background, that'll be my eldest son Luca doing his daily practice. But, well, what can you do? I'm not going to put him off and tell him I want to record an episode, because I'm sure you guys love a bit of drumming on the quiet. Did I just say drumming on the quiet? I think that's an oxymoron, if I've got that right. And we're on the subject of music, kicking off the show there with the crazy Spikepit theme. Many thanks to Logan Howard, who sent that in to me. Sometimes I'm playing it at the end, sometimes I'm playing it at the beginning, but either way, it's awesome, and big shout out to you there, Logan. Swordbreaker extraordinaire. Check out his podcast, his zine. Awesome stuff. Kind of Dungeon World-esque, but totally applicable because Dungeon World is D&D. Ha ha! Alright, not exactly. Don't send me the hate call-ins. But you know what I mean. Come on. Horseshoe.
Oh yeah, Colin. 5e DMG, that's where it's at. That first edition DMG's got a lot of nostalgia for me, but it reads like an obtuse novel. The 5e DMG, though, it's all laid out. It's all in order. It doesn't talk crazy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my first edition DMG, but when I'm prepping, I like to have both of those at my hand, and I usually pick one or the other depending on what I'm doing. And actually, no, it doesn't depend on what I'm doing. It depends on how I'm feeling. You know, if I'm feeling like some Gary, then I pull out first edition. If I'm feeling like 5e, then I pull out that 5e because it's got some good stuff in there. I want to say the first 10 sessions or so from my Midgard campaign I made solely out of that book. I went between three things and finally settled on Tome of Adventure Guide design for the last few sessions. But yeah,
Yeah, Rich, man. Thanks for calling in. And Rich Fraser there from Cockatrice Nuggets, the podcast. He's also recently released his Cockatrice Nuggets #2 zine, and that is up on Drive-Thru RPG. Now, 5e DMG. Sounds like Rich really likes it. I've been talking about how I've been rereading it, and the organisation and layout of it, I can find no fault with it. I've been on my computer just making up villains and NPCs, and playing with the various random tables that are contained within the DMG. And Rich mentions his love of the 1E DMG, and I know that is super popular. I said in the last episode I don't have it, but judging from what Rich is saying, there's a fair bit of similarity between the two, which was my hunch. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have seen the old the old 1E DMG. I just never really owned a copy. I've done call-ins to various people and talked about the fact that back in the day, as a foolish kid, I'd picked it up and just kind of flicked through it and thought, oh, what? That's just crazy talk. And Joe the lawyer would tell you all about his his thoughts on the subject. I know he loves it, but some of the stuff does make you wonder. And yeah, if you want to know more about the 1E DMG, check out Joe the Lawyer and his Not So Wondrous Imaginings podcast. He talks about 1E quite a lot on there. Him and his brother, always worth a listen. Very entertaining. Also, I'd like to say that Rich is kind of one of my go-to sources for a little bit of 5E chat. He's a big proponent of the system. Talks about his prep and how his 5E campaign is going, and the sort of the trials and tribulations of a 5E dungeon master. Rich is also a big fan of Kobold Press, so quite often I'll jump on the Audio Dungeon Discord and kind of fire him a message if I'm after a little bit of insight onto a Kobold Press product, because I know that he probably has got it, and he'll give you some decent information on what it's like, etc. And also Rich is quite a contrast to me. He does a lot of electronic wizardry, with tablets and kind of using the D&D Beyond, and all of this is a little bit of a mystery to me, but I must say the way he describes it does sound quite exciting and super useful. I mean, some time back I think we had an exchange via call-ins and probably chatting on the Discord and one thing and another, and I really do need to look into the D&D Beyond, but I don't know. It's just not my style, but it sounds super cool, and Rich has definitely got the hang of it. So yes, thanks for calling in, Rich, and let's move on to the next caller.
Hey Colin, this is Ray. I'm out on mile 3 of my walk, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm heavy breathing. But yeah, 5e is a solid system. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, rules as written. And if I play it or run it, I have no desire to mess with it. And I think the DMG is easily the best written of the 3 core books. A lot of good stuff in there. I will say my only complaints about 5e is that the world is just so bolted down. And I don't mean the fictional world. I mean that all the mechanics and everything make the learning curve steep, but I'm not really afraid of a learning curve. It makes it harder to invent in that world. So if you come up with a new spell, you really have to engineer it. It's hard to just toss one off. Same way with a new monster. And sometimes players are paralyzed by choice. There's just so many options. But yeah, 5e, great system. And I absolutely agree that part of me responds to it negatively because it is the new thing and because there's material still being produced for it that makes it grow and change and hard to predict about what's going to happen with the system. There's a comfort zone in reaching back to an older system that is finished, that somebody's written FIN at the end of it, and that it's not going to change on you. So if you decide to tinker with it, it's not going to be a moving target. So there you go. Yeah, appreciated your podcast. Good subject. Talk to you later.
Hey, Ray Otus, man. I reckon I'm kind of surprised. I didn't have you down as maybe a 5e guy. I don't know why. You seem to manage to play all the games, and you're not gonna close your mind to any of them. Obviously, as an artist and designer, you need that open mind. And yeah, I agree with you. I think 5e is solid. I think that's a good description of it. I've criticised it before for being a bit wishy-washy, but in some ways, that's probably not so bad. And I understand they're kind of trying to bring in as many people as they can. They've got a commercial concern. They don't want to alienate players from back in the day, and they still want to kind of get in the new cool kids. So yeah, bolted down. Yeah. I suppose it is quite difficult to come up with things. There is quite a lot of rules in there, and like you say, you mentioned that steep learning curve, and I agree with you. I don't want to sort of like scurry away in fear of a learning curve. It's probably quite good for me to kind of try and make a little bit of effort in learning the system. I love light systems. I love easy to play games. But sometimes it is good to get a kind of a little bit more of a chunkier game with some good meat on the bones. There's a good bit of fluff, and it's got sort of, like I said, the spells and stuff. Is probably the spells and the magic system in 5e is kind of like my arch nemesis. I've also been talking to Frank T of Frank T's Liner Notes. Check that out, folks, if you haven't listened to that. And we were talking about this business of stat blocks in 5e, and like if you're trying to design an adventure, or you're trying to come up with a new monster, the 5e stat block can be a little bit unwieldy and intimidating. And I cut myself there before I got too far into the weeds. I just want to say, check out Ray Otus's Patreon, because on there you will find Plundergrounds. It's his, well, strictly speaking, I guess it's a Dungeon World zine, but I've got all of them so far, and they are totally applicable and hackable to any system you play, as far as I'm concerned. Just awesome ideas, really nice artwork. Ray gets art from various top-notch artists. He uses his funds from Patreon to get them on board with his zines. I mean, you just got to check them out. I can't explain them. They're beyond me. I love Plundergrounds. That's it. Mic drop. And here he is, folks. The one, the only. Here's RFED with his board game pick of the week.
Today I wanted to talk about the game Dead of Winter, designed by Isaac Vega and John Gilmore, a Black Hat Games production. For 2 to 5 players, the duration time they stay is 1 hour to 2 hours gameplay time. Dead of Winter is an experience that can only be accomplished through the medium of tabletop games. It is a story-centric game about surviving through a harsh winter in an apocalyptic world. The survivors are all dealing with their own psychological imperatives, but must still find a way to work together to fight off the outside threats, resolve crises, find food and supplies, and keep the colony's morale up. Dead of Winter has players making frequent, difficult, heavily thematic, wildly varying decisions that often have them deciding between what is best for the colony and what is best for themselves.
Hey Colin, it's Vance. Happy Monday. Hey, it was good gaming with you on Sunday and black hacking Matt's Evil Ice Queen back to where she belonged. And then, just thanks for sitting down and chatting after the game. That was really cool. Always good to get a little bit of just chat time kind of offline and face-to-face. Anyway, appreciated it, and talk to you later, and have a great week. Bye.
Hey, thanks Vance for calling in, man. It was a great time playing in Matt Jackson's game. We played Black Hack, as you mentioned, and yeah, I really love that system. I think it's so playable, so hackable, and in contrast to 5e, where Ray was saying everything is quite bolted down, and I understand that, the Black Hack is really, really open to improvising stuff and throwing in new monsters. I mean, a monster is basically a number of hit dice, and the rest, it's just, it's hard to explain. It's just really open, and it, as a system, it answers a lot of the queries that I've got for something like maybe BX. As much as I like BX and my old D&D stuff, Black Hack does iron out a few of the little things that I see as wrinkles, but maybe that's something to be talked about on another occasion. In the meantime, like Vance was saying, we had a little bit of a chat after the game. If you're not a kind of an extrovert and you're maybe tending towards being a little bit more introverted, it can be difficult to find people of a like mind. And I've found that perhaps when you've played an online game and you're on something like Hangouts and everybody's gone their separate ways, everybody's pretty busy, got things to do, maybe, just think about hanging on for a little while afterwards with anybody who hasn't got to rush off. And that's exactly what me and Vance did. And I think we probably hung out there for maybe an hour, perhaps, just chatting. We talked about parenting and our respective families. I talked about where Vance is from, out in the northwest kind of part of the United States there. And part of the reasoning for talking about that was because I've been doing this Basic Fantasy experiment with Jason Hobbs. We're both running Basic Fantasy, and we're both set in the Western lands. And I'd said to Jason, and in a previous episode I talked about setting the Western lands in a kind of an Oregon type of environment and climate. And with Vance being from out that sort of a way, it was a good chance for me to get a little bit more information about, what it's like out there from a native, so to speak. And recently on MeWe, I think it was on MeWe, or I don't know, maybe, yeah, no, it was on MeWe. He's got a co-worker who'd done a trail or something out that way, and the guy was a really, really accomplished photographer, and he Vance put me onto a blog of this guy's kind of travel log, and there was loads of shots of the northwest coast kind of coastline, all the dramatic scenery and everything. So that was really cool, and we chatted about that and one thing and another. But yeah, listen, if you're tuned in, Vance, we'll have to get together again soon and have another chat. And on a kind of related and a little bit more serious kind of a note, if you're like between 40 and 50, you're a guy, you've got a family, perhaps you don't get time to get out so much, you can start to get a little bit down and stuff, and don't be doing that, man. There's if you want to chat, you reach out to some of your gaming buddies, man, and you ain't necessarily got to organise up a game. I believe that you can really boost your mood just having a little, like Vance was saying there, a face-to-face chat with some like-minded folk on a kind of a casual basis. And I'll tell you, I highly recommend it. Even if maybe jump on a Discord audio chat, or just go do a hangout, man. Reach out to someone that you've gamed with, and maybe you get along with, and just sort of see what they're doing, see if they just want to hang out and have a bit of a chat. Because I tell you, in the past, I've got quite isolated. A lot of the people in my day-to-day life, if I talk about gaming and stuff, they're just going to look at me sideways, think I'm a little bit of a nutcase. Like regular listeners will know, I'm just kind of your humble gardener. I'm not really milking it up. No, I'm not really sort of like I haven't got the status symbols and all the trappings that are going to make people sort of stop and pay attention to what I've got to say. So in my day-to-day life, man, you know, people can just pass me by, and quite a lot of the time, if I'm honest, that suits me. But sometimes that can be the little bit more of a lonely path to tread, and when you're not so upbeat, that can, you know, that could maybe make you feel a little bit down. So I would say, man, call on your gamer buddies, man, and you know, see what they're up to. Yeah, that's it. That's my little thought for the day. Just listening back to my episode, I've just thought that I don't want my closing thoughts to sound like, you know, the only people I worry about or consider are 40 to 50-year-old dudes. Obviously, these reflections of mine could apply to anybody, man, woman, whatever age. It's just that obviously I'm talking from my own experience. So I hope you can accept that in the way it's intended, and you know, whoever you are, nobody's an island. You got to kind of draw on your friends, your family, and you know, your gamer buddies. Anyway, all the best and take care.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.